Again, welcome to everybody that's here. And just a reminder, there's no videotaping, audio taping. It's just fair to all the candidates as we interview throughout the rest of the week. And we are taping it for later release after we get through with all the interviews. So Dr. Kevin Maddox, we appreciate you being here. It's so nice to meet you. And it's a compliment to us that you applied for the position of superintendent. So we're going to start with introductions. I'm Kathy Brown, and I've lived here for like 36 years and have 5 Hewitt-Trussville graduates. So very invested in this community.
Hey, I'm Kim DeShazo. I've lived here for 16 years. I'm not a Trussville native, but I've been here for a long time. I've got 3 kids that are in the Trussville City School System. I've got 1 at high school, 1 at the middle school, and 1 of the elementary schools. So I'm certainly fully invested in Trussville City School.
I'm sure you are. Yeah, Mark Sims, 8 years, moved here because of schools and will stay here because of schools. And 1 child that's in college now spending way too much money. It is a product of Trussville City Schools.
My name is Sharon Tolbert, and I've been living in Trussville for 17 years. And like Mark said, I moved here when Trussville was developing and becoming their own school district in 2005. So that was one of the reasons we bought a house here, built a house here. And yes, I am truly invested into Trussville City School and the community and wanted to continue to be successful.
Steve Ward. I moved here in 2006. Both of my grandchildren have gone through the Trussville City Schools, and it's worked out real well for them. My background is all in education in Georgia. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you, sir.
So Dr. Maddox, all the board, we're just going to go through and ask you some questions. We sent you some possible questions to ask, and there may be actually some qualifying or clarifying follow-up to your answers. So before we get started, we're going to give you 2 to 3 minutes just to tell us anything you want to tell us, profession, personal, education, and then we'll ask questions after that.
Well, thank you very much. And I hope I'm not too loud. I have that voice. I would first like to say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to interview for this critical leadership position. I'm just so excited to be here, and I commend you for the process. From my standpoint, from an applicant standpoint, it has gone very, very smoothly. It's been an enjoyable experience for me. My first, but very enjoyable, and the process has been laid out clearly, and I've just really enjoyed being a part of the process. Secondly, I would like to say, as board members, I appreciate your service as board members. It has been, the last 3 years have been the most difficult 3 years of my experience, and that has been true for board members as well. So I just appreciate your service. The community owes you a debt of gratitude, and I certainly recognize how important it is to have quality board members. So thank you for that. In terms of what can I share? I'm currently the assistant superintendent for Homewood City Schools. I've been in this position for 10.5 years, moving toward 11. I've been a principal in 4 different schools, including the middle school and high school in Homewood. And but prior to that, I started my career as a substitute and was an instructional aide, worked at an alternative school as a teacher, worked at the middle school as a teacher and coach, worked at the high school as a teacher and coach, was an assistant principal at the middle school, assistant principal at the high school, and then obviously a principal in 4 schools before becoming superintendent. So I have a wealth of experience, and I look forward to talking with you more tonight about some of those experiences.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm going to start out. So if you were hired as the new superintendent of this school system, what would be your actions the first month, first 3 months, or even down the road the first 6 months, and how could you gauge your success at that?
Okay. I have provided each of you with my 100-day plan for entry. And the title of my plan is Cultivating the Extraordinary. And I truly believe that you have an extraordinary school district. I know that you are probably aware of that, but as a neighbor to your west, I can assure you that we in Homewood are aware of that. You guys have done some amazing things that people have taken notice of over the years. The school district is definitely trending upward, and it's amazing what you've been able to accomplish. I specifically chose the verb cultivating because it requires a special skill set. And that skill set is it's about fostering and nurturing. And I think to take the next step, to be even better tomorrow than you are today, that's what has to happen. That's what I've been immersed in for the last 16 years. I know that's our culture, that's our climate in Homewood. I didn't create it. I am thankful to be in it. It is an amazing place. I know what it looks like, and I know what it doesn't look like. And it's important to understand that, and I certainly do. My plan basically has 4 overarching goals. The first is to transition seamlessly. I think one of the most important things, in light of the fact that, you know, the person taking this position will be the 3rd superintendent of the year, change is extremely difficult. It's challenging. I know I'm not telling you anything that you're not aware of, but it's also difficult for staff members. It's difficult for parents. It's difficult for students. Change in itself is just hard. So transitioning seamlessly basically means to me, I know Dr. Costanzo has done an amazing job. He has a reputation around the state for doing, you know, amazing jobs anywhere he goes. I know that he is a great people person. I consider myself to be a great people person as well. But the transition means to work very closely with Dr. Costanzo. He already knows things that could be very beneficial to the next superintendent. And it would not make a lot of sense to reinvent the wheel. So transition seamlessly basically means working closely with Dr. Costanzo, working closely with the board, because ultimately whoever comes in this time of year as the school is nearing a close, the very last thing that needs to happen is for someone to come in and begin making changes and to have a mentality of, I'm going to do something here. So transition seamlessly is almost like, to me, 2 pilots, you know, flying a plane. You have a pilot and a co-pilot, and you're just a passenger on the plane. No one should notice that the pilot has turned it over to the co-pilot. And that's the way I view the transition. It needs to be seamless, almost unnoticeable. Everyone's going to know there was a change, okay? Everyone's going to know who the superintendent is. They're going to know the superintendent's name. They're going to recognize them when they see them, but it doesn't mean that there should be any major change that takes place. That would be a very poor move in my opinion. The second step I think is critically important, and that is to listen intently. I think, you know, I've learned as the father of 2 daughters, and as a longtime educator, I have learned to become a better listener. Because when you listen to understand, you're going to hear things sometimes that maybe you don't want to hear. Sometimes maybe they're uncomfortable, but it's important to hear them, because if you don't really have an idea of what's going on behind the scenes, you have no way of addressing it. And so to me, listening intently means you have to go where the people are. And so that's what I would do. And one of the things I think that's important is I would, and you can see in my plan, I would have listen to learn sessions around the community, at least 3 of them. My goal would be to have them in local churches, but you know, that's up for debate. But I would love to have listen and learn sessions where community members are invited in, and we just simply talk about what's going right with the schools. What do you love about the schools? You know, what experiences have your kids had with our schools? And what are some ways we could potentially do things better than what we're doing now? And so we're going to elicit feedback from our stakeholders. And I think that is absolutely critical. Again, you're in a high-performing school district. This school district belongs to the stakeholders of the community. It doesn't belong to the superintendent. It doesn't belong to the board. It belongs to the community. They have a vested interest in the success of the school district. So listening intently involves the community meetings that I would have. It also involves meeting with seniors, doing kind of small group conversations with seniors. I believe it's very important to get their perspective on their education in school. You know, how is your educational experience in Trussville City Schools been for you? How could we make it better? You know, if you had one recommendation, what it would be, just to have those small group conversations. I would also want to have an exit interview for all seniors, an exit survey for all seniors to be administered, in hopes that we would get at least 50% participation. Usually when seniors get to April and May, they're not really thinking about completing surveys. They have other things on their mind. But I think that's important feedback because they have been in this district, most of them K-12. So they can share lots of information with us that maybe we know or maybe we don't know. Thirdly, and I believe this is critical and something that I've always done as an administrator, and that's climate surveys. I'm a big fan of climate surveys. And so I know some people aren't. So I'll explain why I am. If you want to, in my opinion, if you want to really know everything that you need to know to be the most effective leader, you have to ask the right people the right questions. And climate surveys, it's just a great way to find out what you don't know. Again, I like climate surveys with, first of all, it has to be anonymous. It has to be anonymous. And I say that because if staff members taking a climate survey do not believe it's anonymous, A, they're probably not going to take it. And B, if they do, they're not going to give their honest, true feedback. So I believe it has to be anonymous. It has to be administered by a third party that maybe they don't know the third party enough to trust, but they know it's not me. It's not their principal. It's not a board member administering the climate survey. I can tell you from my experience, it will be the best source of feedback that a superintendent could ever get. And I'm a big fan of it. I use them as a principal. And the way I use them as a principal is I would have the faculty select someone in the building to administer the surveys. I had nothing to do with it. They were anonymous. The faculty member would report the results of the surveys back to the entire faculty, including myself. And I had not been privy to any of the information. So what I did as a leader is basically just exposed myself to what's happening. And what it did is it really created trust among people, because if you have a survey that you don't use and you don't do anything with it, it's useless. And people, it's devalued. So people won't take it seriously the next time. So, but the caveat is when you administer a climate survey, you have to be prepared for the results that you get. And sometimes it's not the results that you want to hear. It's not always pretty, but it will honestly be the best feedback that a superintendent or any educational leader could receive. So I'm a big fan of them. I'm not afraid of them. I think they're beneficial. Because as a principal, when we would identify areas in need of improvement and areas of strength, and my goal was, after a few years, was to have a list that was so diverse. There weren't really any issues. There weren't like any major issues. People were talking about, you know, what's served in the cafeteria, or, you know, we need another personal day, or it wasn't anything major. And that's when you know that you're doing things the right way. So listening is critical. Hearing the community, hearing students, hearing staff members, and that's part of the whole listening intently piece. So transition seamlessly, listen intently. Third is to organize strategically. So in my mind, what that means is you take all the information that you have obtained from conversations, from surveys, from face-to-face conversations that you've had with people, from interaction, from hearing from students. You take that information and you gather a group of people together. And I can't say who that group would be right now, but it would be a group larger than me. to look at all that data and go, okay, what do we need to do? Like, we can't fix, address, because it really doesn't matter where you issue this survey. You're gonna get the same kinds of results. So what do we do with the results? And that's where organizing strategically for the next school year comes in. We're gonna take that information, we're gonna do something about it. And not only we're gonna do something about it, we're gonna talk about, you said, and I mean you being the stakeholders, you said this was something we needed to address. This is what we've done to address it. This is what we're doing to address it. And then what they see is, okay, you're listening to us. Like you're taking our feedback and you're actually doing something with it. And what that does is just generates a climate of trust where people go, okay, I do trust that person. They are going to follow through. They are going to do what they said they were going to do. And to me, integrity is so important because if we don't follow through with things, we lose trust and confidence in people. And I work in a school district that's with just like this one, with very high expectations. And I'll talk later, hopefully, about leadership in general. But, you know, we work for our community. That's how it goes. Like, we serve our community. It doesn't mean everyone gets what they want, but it means we're going to listen to them. There is no one in this district that's too special to sit down and talk to anyone. And I certainly will give you examples of that later on. The last step, communicate transparently. It is so important to communicate effectively and to communicate transparently. And what I mean by transparently is communicate so well and so often and so efficiently that people are saying, why do they continue to communicate with me about this? Like, you're over communicating, but there's never anyone out there going, they're hiding something from me. And our community has a great deal of trust in us that we're going to be transparent, because things happen when you have 5,000 students like you do, and you have probably over 2,000 parents, families, and you have, 600 staff members. Things are going to happen, like they're going to. But when they do, you have to just own it and deal with it and communicate about it. And I can tell you this, we've had many situations, I couldn't name them all, in Homewood where unfortunate things have happened, things we were not proud of, things that we certainly, didn't want out in the community. We would prefer that they not be, but that's not how we operate. So immediately we're working on the communication, and I work directly with our director of communications to craft those communications now for Homewood when things happen. We have a multifaceted plan about how we do that, and I think that's important. But people have to trust that you're going to be forthright with them and honest. And that's the only way I've ever operated. I don't really know any other way. I wouldn't want to be a part of any other system. So transitioning seamlessly, listening intently, organizing strategically, and communicating transparently would be my plan. Now, to the second piece of that, how would I gauge my success after the 100 days, 6 months, whatever? One of my favorite questions to ask in a teacher interview, and I participate in all of them because it is probably the most important thing that I do, is how will you as a teacher gauge your own effectiveness as a teacher? And what that does, it's just like the question you asked me. It forces self-reflection. How are you going to know at the end of the year that you've done a good job? Well, a good leader, a good teacher should know that all along the way. There should be little markers all along the way, moments where you can high five and go, we really made headway here. Like, this was really positive. What we did was great. This meeting didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. Why didn't it go well? Let's examine why, and let's try to do it better next time. So I think it's important and obviously communication with board members. You guys are going to give the superintendent feedback. there's gonna be constant communication between the superintendent and the board. And you're gonna give me feedback about, hey, I heard about this and that's great. It was awesome. Or you may hear about something else and go, hey, what happened here? So all along the way, ultimately, there's a summative evaluation that you as board members are going to do. Like that's part of it, just like we do with teachers. And that's great. And that's wonderful feedback, okay? But it doesn't help me in October. And it doesn't help me in December or February. It will greatly help me for the next year. So there has to be other ways to assess how well we're doing. My personality is to be very engaged at the schools. I'm in a school every single day, multiple schools most of the time, and I'm engaging with people constantly. And I promise you, they will tell me anything and everything that they want me to know, and I love it. And so I think it's important to have those little community members are going to share, what their thoughts are about how we're doing. So I really think it's important just to be able to self-reflect and understand where you are, what you've done, and how well it has gone. I think that's just who I am and what I would do.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm up. So you've talked a little bit about climate surveys as far as teachers are concerned. Well, obviously you've got stakeholders that are that's the board. You've got administrators, you have community leaders, you have students, you have parents, you have staff, you have lots of different stakeholders, right?
Sure.
So I'm interested in practical ways or even examples, if you have some, of ways that you would be able to help facilitate a positive relationship or create a positive culture with amongst all those very diverse groups of shareholders. Sorry, the lawyer's coming out at me. Stakeholders.
So this may not be a direct answer to your question, but I will say this. I have always operated from a big you, little me standpoint. Everyone in the organization is important. There's not one person that's more important in the organization than another. That's what I personally believe. I'm not about titles. I really don't care about them. I know we have to have them. And I know that someone's ultimately in charge of a school and of a school district. But I think it's important to engage with people on a level to where they don't feel threatened and they feel equally important. I love our classified staff because they work so incredibly hard. But rarely, are they in a situation where people are recognizing them. So I love to engage with them. We have specifically, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but I lead a CrossFit class 4 days a week at Homewood High School, and I've been doing it for 10 years. And I do it for several reasons. One is because I love serving other people. It's an opportunity for me to work with other staff members and help them become more fit, more healthy. It's just something that I've always done. We have our head custodian who I just absolutely adore. She's amazing. She's like my second mom. So she'll get on to me sometimes for doing things. And I go, yes, ma'am. She doesn't like it when I grab a bag to take it to the garbage container. She doesn't like it when I do that. She's like, I got it. That's my job. Let me have it. I'm like, come on. Like, I'm going in that direction. Let me take it. I think it's important for people to feel appreciated and respected. So I would, back to your question, go, that's just me. That's just who I am. I don't really know how to operate any differently. So when I think about the community and the stakeholders of the school, they're going to see someone who doesn't care about a title, who doesn't care about making sure everyone in the organization understands they're in charge. That isn't who I am. And if that's something that's needed, that is not who I am and not who I'm going to be. It has served me very well not to be that person. But we back to your question, we love to engage our staff members in conversations about their needs and their wants and their desires. We administered a survey to our staff back at the end of the past school year to assess their mental health and to ask them questions about what can we do to better assist you in becoming a better teacher or a better custodian or a better, whatever. And it was great because the feedback we received was extremely helpful. And one of the things they said was, we would love to have someone to lead a wellness program for our school district. And so that was back in the spring. And again, you never ask someone to complete a survey if you're not going to do something with the results. So we reported back to our stakeholders that we were indeed going to select someone. We posted a position and we just named someone last week as our wellness coordinator for the district. Now, this is a supplemented position for someone that's already working in the district, but they're already beginning the phases of creating wellness opportunities for staff members before school, after school. And so, again, it's just so much ingrained in what I've always done and what I do. It's like describing to someone what the Grand Canyon looks like if they haven't been there. You can try, but realistically, you just have to visit if you really want to know. And for me, it's, I do it every day. It's just what I do. It's what I know. I've never known it any other way. I would say the stakeholders and the staff members in our district would echo the fact that we're here to serve you. We're here to help you. How can we help you? How can we remove barriers from you? And that sustains our climate and it keeps it healthy and people trust us and we care about each other. I love engaging with people, not about school. I love engaging about school, but I love engaging about your children. Where are you going on vacation this summer? That's what people want to talk about. They're here every day working really, really hard to do the best job they can do. And I think it's important for them to know we care about them on a level that's deeper than what they do for us. And that's the way that I view that.
If I understood you correctly, you complimented the process for the application. I think you said it's your first time to apply for a superintendent role. Is that fair?
Yes,
So
sir.
after all these years, why now? And don't make it about Trustful, because I'm sure it's your internal thoughts on why now. Because we know we're great, but other than that.
I can't do what you're asking me to do because it is about Trustful. And I love telling stories, so I'll be as brief as I can be. In 2016, my youngest daughter, who's a junior in high school now, played softball. So we tried out and joined the Red Storm softball team out of Trustful. And for the next 4 years, honestly, some of the best years of our life, some of the best days of our life were spent in your community. In fact, when I turned off on Highway 11 for 459 today, I'm I'm ready to throw a softball. Because that's what we did. So we would come 2 or 3 times a week to practice. We spent a lot of time at the complex. We would go over to the middle school, to the high school field at the middle school, and we would hit in their facility and we would practice on their field some. I hope that's not telling on anyone, but we had an amazing time. But bigger than that, I met families from here that we still communicate with. We don't play together anymore. We fell in love with those families and those kids. And if one of those kids were in front of me now, even though they're juniors or sophomores now, some may be seniors, I would give them a big hug, just like when they were in the 7th grade. We fell in love with the community then, and we spent time in the restaurants. And I remember driving down Highway 11 and turning, and I can't remember the name of the road, but turning and driving by the First Baptist Church, or the old board office was on my right, and we would go down and we turn by Cahaba and we drive through the neighborhood with the historic homes and drive over into the park. And we did that so routinely, it was almost as if Trustful became an extension of our community. We just had some great times here and great memories. I have to be honest, this is one of the top school districts in Alabama. You know that. I know that. I think it is a juggernaut. I'm just telling you, it is going to deal other districts fits in the future. You're already dealing other district fits, like you're dealing mine fits right now. So, and you may not even know you are. We'll talk about that later potentially too. There's some really good things going on here. It's a very special place. There have been lots of opportunities. Like there's always opportunities. I love what I do. I love where I work. I love the people I work with. Homewood City Schools has been very good to me over the years. And they have made it very hard for me to even flirt with other opportunities. But I've always had my eye on this place since 2016, since we first started coming here. And I didn't know if it would ever open up or if there would ever be an opportunity. My thought would be I'm retiring from Homewood unless something happens. And here we are today. And honestly, I feel like from the very beginning, I just felt the calling. Like, this is the perfect match. And that's from Kevin's perspective. I'm not saying that's your perspective, but from my perspective, it's the perfect match. Lots and lots of potential. I look at Trussville and I go, you have so much stored up. I'm going to use a science term. I'm not a science teacher, but you have so much potential energy stored up in this place. And there is a way to unleash that potential energy, which we can talk about later, maybe if we don't run out of time beforehand, that I think can, take you to an even better place. And I'm not saying Kevin's going to take you to a better place. We can take the school system to a better place because it's going to take more than one person to do it. It's in a phenomenal place right now. Okay. I'm just telling you. It's like being one of the 4 football playoff teams and someone asking you after the game, what are you going to do to get better next year? Well, we're good now. We're really good or we wouldn't be here. But there's always a way to get better. I love the city's 2040 strategic plan. You are so blessed to have a city that's that visionary and that forward thinking, that have partnered with the schools to look at growth. And you have an elementary school in Payne that's large, to say the least. We have one in Homewood that's similar, one that's much larger than the other two. And I understand the challenges that come with that. So there's a lot of things about this place that are attractive. It would take me a long time to list them all. But when I think of the first thing, I think of softball. I have to.
Say that exit now has got a lot more traffic, but that's a sign of growth and we're proud of that. So can I follow up on that right there too? So thinking about leadership style, you mentioned your personality style a minute ago, and I don't know if you're familiar with Myers-Briggs and some of those studies, and I'm guessing what style I think you are. Then you think about leadership style, how you pull those things. Is there part of your personality sometimes you maybe think you have to pull back, or maybe you've even learned from it from these climate surveys? There's a part of your world that, maybe you had to be mindful of in your leadership.
That's a great question. When I had a principalship, my first principalship was one that had to be transformational. So I view my principalships, I had to operate differently in each one of those jobs, each one of those roles. My first one was transformational because I was tasked with a school that was in school improvement. And there were so many issues going on, and the school was high poverty and the graduation rate was low. And we had really low test scores and the morale was low. And there had been a lot of turnover in leadership. And honestly, looking back, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. It was the greatest learning experience I ever had. It was the hardest work I've ever done. And it was the most rewarding work that I've ever done. Because in a matter of 2 years, we literally turned a failing school around to one that was recognized statewide, we had 7 schools in our county school district. We went from last place academically to second place academically in 2 years. So many of the people that worked in that building have gone on to other leadership positions around the state. And I'm so honored to look back on my time there. So I think, to your question, I feel like I can put on any hat that I want to put on in any moment. You know, I've dealt with really difficult issues with students and parents. I've dealt with discipline issues with staff members. But one of the things I truly believe is we have to treat everyone with respect. It doesn't matter the circumstance. It does not matter the circumstance. We have to treat people with respect. And the way that we view it in Homewood, or that we say this in Homewood, and I'm not sure that this is really appropriate, but we say that we are the Chick-fil-A of school districts. And basically what that means is we're going to be kind and respectful and efficient, and we're going to do a really good job with what we do. And we're going to give you just about everything that you need and most of what you ask for. And we're going to be very consistent. We're going to smile at you. But if you go to Chick-fil-A and order a Whopper, you're not going to get one. So sometimes you have to say, I'm sorry, we can't do that, but here's what we can do. And I think it's so important to operate from a mentality of it's all about kids. And I think about, we have a big circle like you have up behind you. And there's a student in the middle of that circle. And everything that we do before we make a decision, we ought to look at that circle and go, is the decision that we're making best for what's inside that circle? And if it is, it's easier to make. If it's outside the circle, we have to think about it a little more carefully. So the student has to be the center of our focus. But back to your question, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I think it's important for us. It's important as a leader to recognize that you can wear many hats. You have to wear them equally well. But the one that I love wearing is the hat of cheerleader. I'm here to support you. How can I help you? And that's what I've always done. And here's the thing about it. It works. It works. I know you're probably familiar with Jim Collins, Good to Great. It's been around for a long time. And, Jim Collins relates to, he identifies level 5 leadership from the studies that he did with 28 companies over 30 years. And one of the things he identified that makes a level 5 leader what they are is personal humility combined with professional will. That's what the great ones are able to do. Personal humility and a tenacious will to get something done. When you put those two things together, you have something really special. I'm not sitting here claiming I'm a level 5 leader. I'm not arrogant like that. I would never do that. I would aspire to be one of those, certainly. But I have humility. Like that's just who I am. I cannot deny that. I learned it from my father. And people are important, and we have to treat them that way. And when difficult things happen, we have to deal with those things, but we do it respectfully. And that's just the way that I operate. It's not personal. It's never personal. When parents are angry and upset, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about their kid. And I love my 2 daughters more than anything in the world. And I will do anything for them. And there's not a parent in Trussville that doesn't feel exactly the same way. So I get it. And I don't know, I'm not really sure if I answered your question or not, but it's honest.
Okay, I'm gonna try to change the gears a little bit. So in Trussville City Schools, the superintendent handles the operation budget. And explain to me how you plan on dealing with the expense of different programs like special education, federal programs, career tech, risk program, and how we're gonna provide, needs to the athletics as well too. Can you explain that to me?
It's a great question. Absolutely. I have been in Homewood. I am the lone assistant principal. I was talking with Becky behind the scenes a little earlier. I love what I do, but I do lots of things. And so from one minute to the next, I may be interviewing someone for a job. I may be attending an OAC meeting for some type of building project that we have. We have several ongoing, kind of like you guys probably do. all of the directors in our office communicate with me regularly, including our director of special education. Our technology director essentially is responsible for career tech. We have a very small career tech program at Homewood. But in terms of special ed, special education obviously is federally funded. It's certainly not fully funded by a long shot. And honestly, it's something that the expenses of special education are often unpredictable, because you have to respond to things that occur, whether it be an IEP change or a new IEP, a new student comes into the district. I firmly believe, and I may feel differently if I'm afforded this opportunity, I firmly believe we have the top special education program in the state. And the reason I say that is because we have people who come to us and tell us that they've been referred by other people for that very reason. So we are continually having students move in that have some type of special need. And our goal is we want every student in our district to achieve. We want them to have the resources that they need. We want to put everyone on equal footing. And so obviously, but there's a finite amount of resources available. So we have to be very strategic in how we do that. And so I worked and have worked very closely with our director of special education and our CSFO. I'm involved in every budget that's done, and we're talking about personnel, and we're talking about whether it's a one-on-one aid and a new student that comes in and they need a certain type of equipment that may be needed. And we look at the budget to determine, all right, what do we need to do? When do we need to purchase it? What fund is it going to come from? So it's something that I've been immersed in for a long time. But I think, again, it goes back to, it's about the kid. It's about the kid. And that has to be our focus. And we can get distracted by the money. We can get distracted by the financial piece of it. We can get distracted by this notion that that's going to cost us more money than we would like to pay. I get it. I get it. But at the end of the day, I view it this way. You know, my two daughters went to school. Neither of them were, required any type of special service. But I know lots of parents whose children needed them and benefited greatly from them. And as a parent, when I think of advocacy, the closest I've come to having to advocate for one of my children was when my daughter broke her foot. And honestly, in that moment, my whole perspective changed about school. You know why? Because I started thinking, wait a minute, how is she going to get from the car into the school? How is she going to get from one class to the next? How is she going to carry the book bag? So I started thinking about it from that perspective to understand those parents have an obligation to advocate at a much higher level than me with my children, because they feel like their children have some situation that puts them on a playing field that's not level. And all they're trying to do is create a level playing field. But I think we have to be honest. I think we have to be forthright. We have to be good stewards of public funds. We have to be very strategic in what we do. But ultimately, it's finding a way to help kids. That's ultimately our charge and our goal. And we are fortunate in Homewood to have a very robust reserve, just like you have a very robust reserve. So we're always mindful of those expenses and personnel. And I'm involved in every single personnel decision that happens in Homewood. So it's important. We go through, we did this a month ago or so. We literally meet at the school with the principal and walk through every single staff member, every single one of them. And it's important because that's really the only way that you can really gauge what a program is going to cost you or a service is going to cost you. So I don't know if that answers your question, Mrs. Tolbert, but it's basically about working closely with the CSFO while also keeping in mind the needs of the student.
Okay, thank you.
As you know, we're there is a teacher shortage and recruiting, and I need to ask you what your thoughts are on how would you attract teachers to Trussville City Schools? How would you retain, what are some things you would do to retain teachers?
Yes, sir.
And most of all, we'll look at morale of teachers. Your thoughts on those?
Here are my thoughts. That could be my favorite question. No offense. I love the notion of, I view recruiting teachers like a football coach views recruiting players. And that is, we want to find the most highly effective, kid-loving, intrinsically driven people that we can find. You know, currently Homewood is ranked #1 in the state for having the best teachers in Alabama. I didn't create the ranking, but I am thrilled to be a part of it. And we work extremely hard to do that very thing. And there's a strategy, obviously, hiring early. The earlier you hire, the better opportunities you have to attract the very best candidates. We do not hire people who do not indicate a love for kids. Not on the table, not happening. When we're interviewing people, you know, we want to find out, do you love kids? Tell us how. Why did you choose teaching? It needs to be about the kids. If we're not hearing that, you know, there's probably another district that would be better for you. I will be at Auburn on Wednesday. I'll be at Alabama on Thursday recruiting. I love it. I've already contacted the students that I'm going to be talking to. I've actually reached out to a few about, hey, come and talk to us in Homewood. So recruiting is big, but let me tell you an advantage that you have that really got under my skin last year. I want to tell you, I can be honest with you. Your salary schedule was very irritating to me last year because this district pays starting teachers $5,000 more than my district, than the district directly to the south of my district, and the district directly to the east of my district that will go unnamed. That is a huge recruiting tool, particularly for teachers in the first 10 years of experience or fresh graduates from college, because for good reason, they look at salary schedules. So I was having to overcompensate for having a salary schedule that paid less than you did by trying to sell other aspects of our district over the money, over the difference in pay. So you have a huge recruiting tool right there. I think the climate is what retains people. That's why we in Homewood have very, very little turnover. And there's kind of an old joke that, you know, once you come to Homewood, you never leave. And the reason people stay, they could probably make more money in certain districts moving other places, but they stay because they love where they are. They love their job. They love coming to work every day, just like I do. And that's the climate that you have to retain people. Salary is not going to retain people because after a few months, it's just a salary. So retaining people is all about the climate. So when I meet with prospective teachers and when we're interviewing people, I always love to tell them about what I love about working where I work and why it's so special and why it's unique and why they're going to love it. So you've got the climate in retention, but you also have mentoring. You've got to mentor, especially teachers in their first 3 years. You have to have a robust mentoring program. And you have to have resources to professionally develop teachers, to provide professional learning, ongoing professional learning for them. They look at a school district as a total package. It's a good salary. It's a great place to work. No different than the business world. It's a great place to work. It's a place I could see myself working for a long time. It's a place that I'm willing to raise my family. Most of the staff members in Homewood do not live there. You know, We have people that drive in 30, 45 minutes to work in our district. They drive by districts to get to ours. And it's not necessarily because we're paying more money. It's because they just cannot leave the climate. And I'll be honest with you, it is one of the most challenging aspects of thinking about leaving because it is hard. When the names were released last week, my phone blew up, just like everyone else's phones probably did. And it was from so many people that I work with, and it's all these emoji faces and tears and, and it's really just validation for, I love what I do. I love where I work. It's a fantastic place. I'm sure Trussville is just as fantastic. Certainly that is the climate that I would want to be involved in. But there's another piece to your question I also want to address. I think it's important for us to understand sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes you hire someone, you do it for the right reasons, you invest in them, you mentor them, you train them, you do everything you can do, but it just doesn't work. And when it just doesn't work, you have to move on. And so sometimes that means you have to let teachers go. It's not something you want to do, but the golden rule is, and I've always said this to principals, if they ever had a doubt in that area, I asked them this question. If you had a child, would you put them in that teacher's classroom next year? That's what I asked them. That usually helps them make a decision, typically. But I love the question because I love recruiting teachers.
Morale,
yes, sir.
morale. What specific things, what are some gimmicks or some strategies?
I think people love to have a highly visible administration, a highly visible assistant superintendent, a highly visible superintendent. People want to see the leadership. They want to see them in classrooms. They want to see them in hallways. They want to have people come by on occasion and pat them on the back and congratulate them for a good job. We all love those kinds of things. We love validation. It's very important to the job that we do. But also you have to have the right climate. Culture is very difficult to impact. You have an amazing culture, and it probably doesn't matter who's sitting in the superintendent seat. The culture is solid because the culture is deeply rooted and comes from the community and is well ingrained. The climate could be destroyed by one person. It could be destroyed in a school by one person. It could be destroyed in a district by one person. It could be negatively impacted by one person. That's why it's so important to always have the pulse of a district to know what's going on. And I view it like, I call them sparks and infernos. If I write a book one day, that could be the title. There are always going to be sparks. If you have an ear to the ground, you have the pulse of the district, you're visible, you're communicating with people, people trust you, you can extinguish those sparks. If you don't extinguish those sparks, they're going to become infernos, and they're very difficult to extinguish, and all you can really do is contain them. And so we're going to have, on occasion, as educational leaders, infernos dropped in our lap. We didn't ask for them. We didn't want them. We didn't plan for them. They just happen, and you go, okay, we have to deal with the inferno. I like to deal with the sparks. And so I love to be proactive. I love to be out and about. I love to be engaged with people. I love it when someone will come up and go, hey, I'm just not really sure about this. And then I can follow up with that person, whatever the case may be. There's probably not a week that goes by that I don't have a staff member reach out to me and say, hey, can I meet with you about something? Absolutely. I'll come to you. I'll make it convenient. What works with your schedule? And if I have to rearrange mine, I rearrange mine, because that's a whole lot more important. And sometimes it's about, okay, I'm about to take a maternity. I'm going to have to take a maternity leave. I'm pregnant. Congratulations. We're talking about the excitement of that. And then I'm going to help walk them through and navigate the next steps that they need to take. we meet with staff members at the beginning of the year to talk about benefits. And I love getting in front of staff members to talk to them about ways that we can help them. Benefits are important, and sometimes staff members may not know about them. So I hope that answers your question. I know I'm not being brief, but sorry.
No, but you're answering a lot of other questions embedded in
Okay.
a lot of
Okay.
questions, so
So
that does help.
I want to follow up on what one of the answers you gave, Steve,
Okay.
about recruiting. And I know you said, you going to Alabama and Auburn. Are there other universities that you're recruiting from? Because, our district is diverse.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
want to know also, how do you feel about diversity?
Great question. All right, 2 questions. Yes, we recruit all over the state. We absolutely do. I was just speaking of what I do this week because it's right around the corner. And I have one actually graduating from Auburn in May in special education. So I have a vested interest in being down there on Wednesday. I'm really excited about that. We recruit all around the state, and absolutely, we're always looking. We want our staff to reflect our student body. In Homewood, we have 29 countries represented in Homewood. We are extremely diverse in every way that you can be diverse. And I look at diversity maybe a little different than I did 20 years ago. I used to think diversity was about race and gender. And so when I heard diversity, I automatically went to race and gender. I think of diversity completely different now. Diversity to me means variety. And there's all types of people in the world that have all types of gifts and skills and backgrounds. And we celebrate them in Homewood. So one of the things that we did in Homewood when I was principal at Homewood High School that connects with that is in an effort to show our appreciation for diversity, we created what was called the 6 attributes. We called it the 6 attributes of the Homewood spirit. And I, as the principal, read them every single morning at Homewood High School, and they're still being read today. And those 6 attributes are: show respect toward yourself, others, and the environment. Make good choices even when no one is watching. Celebrate uniqueness. Everyone is different. Words matter. Think before you speak. Be your personal best in all you do, and serve others and feel the joy. It is the most well-rounded student you can have. They can do all of those things. As a parent, I'm thrilled. But celebrating uniqueness means we're all different. I have 0 musical talent. I have 0 artistic ability, but I love music. And I admire people that can create it and sing. And I admire people that can draw. So I think it's important that for me, diversity means we have to celebrate everyone. We have to bring everyone into the fold. And that is what we do. We're immersed in it in Homewood. And it's just been a part of everything that I've done. I've only worked in really diverse school districts, so I really don't know it any other way. But I will say this, back to your point, and one of the things that I have really emphasized and to legislators and others, and that is we really need strategies to recruit more diversity into the teaching field in general. And I think that's a challenge. It's finding the people that you're looking for is sometimes difficult. And so we work with universities to try to recruit, to diversify our staff as much as we possibly can. And that's certainly something I would work to make sure that we were doing here as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
I want to ask you about strategic planning, because the strategic plan drives the district. So how would you describe the process you would prefer for the development? How would you develop, and who would you include in developing the strategic plan for Trussville City Schools?
That's now my new favorite question. Okay.
Oh.
So when I think about, and I look for a strategic plan, and maybe you have one, the magic sauce, like the secret ingredient, if we were talking about Coca-Cola or Kentucky Fried Chicken or whatever the secret ingredient is to make something really, really special, is strategic planning. In 1996, Homewood initiated and implemented their first strategic plan. We just started this year implementing our 6th strategic plan. And let me explain what that looks like. Strategic planning does not mean that I gather 3 or 4 people in the district office and we sit down and we put a plan together. That's not strategic planning. Strategic planning, if done the correct way, will take us a year to do. And in my 100-day plan, you can see somewhere in there, I know there's a lot, but one of the pieces in there is to adopt a strategic planning model for the district to be implemented for the next school year. And I know that may be bold, that may be too soon, it may be too aggressive. When I think about what makes Homewood what it is now and why it is where it is, without the strategic plan, we're not there. In my opinion, we're not a top 15 school district without the strategic plan. And I'll tell you why. Because in strategic planning, you're bringing people together, a group of stakeholders together. You have an outside facilitator who's going to come in and you're going to dissect every single piece of the district. You're going to examine the beliefs. What do you believe? How do you know you believe it? How can you prove you believe it? You're going to look at the values and you're going to create a mission that everyone can buy into, because everyone has to buy into it. Otherwise, it serves no purpose. From that is going to emerge strategies. These are things that we want to accomplish over the next 5 years. I've been a part of 3 strategic planning teams, and I've led those teams to develop those strategies. And those strategies are things that we collectively, I use the word we, collectively are going to implement. And from that, in Homewood, I think about big things. We have assistant principals for curriculum and instruction in all of our schools. That's all they do. That came from a strategic plan. We have learning targets for our kids that basically spell out in a certain grade level, in a certain subject. These are the things that we expect every single kid in that grade level to know. Those are updated annually, routinely. But every 5th grader, every teacher that teaches a 5th grader has the same expectations. And that's a minimal standard. That's not, this is everything. This is every 5th grader. We expect them to know these things came from a strategic plan. And it's been extremely powerful in our school district. I think about the structure that we have for analyzing student achievement and having conversations about data, and our professional learning plan that we have all emerged from a strategic plan. It is the most important thing that your district can do, in my opinion, without having a strategic plan that you're currently implementing. It is the secret sauce to taking you places that you've never been. And I was saving up. I wasn't sure if I would be asked about strategic planning. It is the most, if I'm not the person selected, hear me when I say this, it is the most important thing that your district can do moving forward. That's my opinion, because I've seen it in action. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, our school district would not be where it is today without highly effective strategic plans that brought a community together to create something very, very special. And that's as short of an answer as I can give to that question, but it's extremely important to get that done.
Thank you.
No, I think I want two quick things. One, I think it's only fair if we give you an opportunity to ask us any questions that you might have for us. But second, and I think strategic plan was one of the things that you said throughout the course of the interview. I'd written down a couple of things that you said that you wanted to maybe talk about later. I wanted to give you an opportunity if there was something that you wanted to make sure we heard from you that we had not touched on yet. I wanted to give you an opportunity for that as well before we wrapped up.
Thank you for that question. You know, when I think about, I do not have any questions, but I would like to say a few things. When I think about student achievement in general, the big picture of student achievement, there's like 4 big things that come to my mind. The very first is strategic plan. Like a great strategic plan. And that's more long-term. That's we want the trend line moving up. How do we move that trend line? Strategic planning is how you move the trend line. Then I think about hiring, retaining, mentoring, developing teachers. That in my mind is number 2. 3 is having systems. You probably already have them built in to assess students, to progress monitor them, to benchmark test them, all along the way to ensure that students are achieving. A minimum standard is 1 year's growth. We should expect 1 year's growth for every single student that walks in the doors of our schools. And that is a minimum standard. Certainly there are going to be students that excel beyond that, but that should be our minimum expectation. And one of the things I think that's in the application, even this very detailed, is I believe that, I use the term a rising tide of student achievement should lift all boats. Like every student in the district should benefit from everything that we do, not one particular group. And a strategic plan will help ensure that that occurs. And lastly, teaching is hard. Teaching is difficult. Teaching is challenging. It's more challenging today than it's ever been. Our teachers need our support. They need resources. They need us behind them. They need us to motivate them. They need us to provide professional learning opportunities for them. They need us to engage with them. There's lots of other strategies, but I think those big 4 right there, if you've got those things in place, the trend line is going to continue moving in the right direction. And I can assure you that that would be, as superintendent, my top priority is to ensure that we have a well-crafted strategic plan that's going to move that trend line. And I'll say one more thing about that. Sometimes strategic planning will force you to do things that maybe you wouldn't do. It allows you to dream about the tomorrow that doesn't exist. It allows you to think about things without being restricted with money and finance. If we could dream about what we want for the future in this school district, and money is no object, what might it look like? To me, that's strategic planning. So when we create a strategic plan that says we're going to do X, and then we have a group of people who go, I really don't want to do X. Well, guess what? It's not your decision. It's our decision. And we have collectively decided this is the direction our district wants to go. And I think that's what's so special about strategic planning. And so I would add that I really don't have any further questions for the board.
Thank you.
Are y'all good? Well, again, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. For the rest of the process, you're one of 5. We're doing interviews Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we are also doing checking references and all that. And someone will get in touch with you. So
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your hospitality, and as I said, from the beginning to the end, it's been great. And it was great getting to meet a few people in the back. This facility is amazing. And I know that you have a difficult task before you. I want you to know, I'm not looking for a title. I'm not looking for greener grass. The grass where I am is green. I love it. It's great. This place is really, really special. And I truly believe that I have a skill set that could benefit the district. And I would love to be a part of something really, really special. And that's what I see for this district down the road.
well, thank you. Thank you so much.